future Star Wars movies. Yes, Rey is back. Let's see what Dan has to say about this and check this out.
Oh boy, Star Wars fans, it seems like Lucasfilm is finally ready to reveal what their plans are for the next Star Wars movie. And I thought it was the perfect time to not only talk about this new report and what they're talking about as far as what's going to be announced at Star Wars Celebration, but I also want to give you guys the tea. I want to give you guys all the rumors and the crazy stuff that I've heard from behind the scenes about Lucasfilm's plan for the future Star Wars films. And oh boy, it is a doozy. I am fascinated by some of the things I've heard, and I'm really curious as to how the fan base will react to them. So buckle up, smash the like on this video, and let's begin. Now, you may have seen many people talking about this over the last couple of days, and that is because the Hollywood Reporter ran a very big article on February 16th, which did say that they have heard from their sources that Lucasfilm will indeed reveal what the next Star Wars movie is going to be at Star Wars Celebration in April. And this is a super big deal. Some people were saying like, oh, well, how do we even know that that's a thing? But the fact that it's coming from the Hollywood Reporter, a Hollywood trade, is a super big deal. It indicates that it's very likely true, and if Lucasfilm wanted to, they could remove bits of information from the article, or they could call the Hollywood Reporter and have them take the entire article down. Interestingly, the article itself is titled, "How Much is Too Much Marvel and Star Wars? Disney Rethinks Franchise Output." And I think the reason this article was created is because there's been a lot of discussion recently amongst fans, but most importantly amongst Wall Street, that Disney itself is diluting its brands. And on top of that, this crazy thing called Disney Plus, which from the outside looks to be this massive success, is actually losing Disney a ton of money every year. And at a time when every streaming service is seemingly losing some subscribers and consumer behavior is taking new patterns that maybe weren't predicted, and the whole world goes into sort of a shrinking economy, the question of how to leverage these massive IPs in a way that's profitable is a massive question on the table for Bob Iger. I don't really think we have to linger on this too much, but like, obviously when Disney fires Bob Chapek on a freaking Sunday and brings back Bob Iger, you can tell things are not going well. Now, the first part of this article focuses on Marvel, which has so many different television shows and movies in production, and they focus on the fact that Marvel Studios needs to slow down. This is something I've been talking about in a lot of different reports. Marvel Studios is well aware of the problem, and they've been signaling a slowdown for some time. But the article then shifts into Star Wars, and it talks about how Star Wars is actually having something of the opposite problem that Marvel is. Here's what the article says here. It says Star Wars is facing the opposite challenge. After being absent from the big screen since 2019 and having had false starts with Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron, which may never materialize, Disney has ramped up its efforts to return the franchise to theaters. Damon Lindelof led a writer's room in July of last year to hash out a story for a feature, and Taika Waititi is still developing his own take on the franchise. Disney is expected to unveil film plans at Star Wars Celebration set for April in London. On top of season 3 of Mandalorian, shows expected to hit the streaming service this year include Ahsoka, starring Rosario Dawson, and the John Watts-produced Skeleton Crew. Lucasfilm may ramp up, but it will still have to abide by the same fiscal discipline as the rest of the company, says The Insider. And again, that's mostly because this article is talking about Disney changing its strategy completely based on what the new economy looks like. And so they're hearing from their sources that Star Wars is going to officially announce what movies are coming out this year at Star Wars Celebration. And again, this being in the Hollywood trades and, you know, still being up and not having taken down or been changed by the studios is a real indication that that's actually going to happen. And the fact that they talk about the Damon Lindelof Star Wars movie really makes us all believe that that's going to be the movie that comes out in 2025, and I absolutely think that that's the case. I'll talk more about that in a second because we actually know a good bit about that film. But strangely, they also mentioned the Taika Waititi Star Wars movie, which I thought was definitely going to go the way of Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron. It just seemed like the buzz for Taika had really died down after Thor, Love and Thunder, and even Taika himself was talking about starting the script, not sure if it was actually going to happen. And so it seemed to me that that project would fall by the wayside. But they bring it up in this article, which, again, I just want to say, that's a big deal. For them to mention it and say that it's still in production in the Hollywood trades means that it's still in production. I actually wouldn't be surprised if more of a formal announcement about the timeline for that movie is made at Star Wars Celebration in London. And as far as other movies are concerned, there's talk of Sean Levy doing a Star Wars movie. This is the guy that's directing Deadpool 3. He did Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds. I think he's a fantastic dude, but unfortunately I've heard that movie's probably not going to materialize. There's also, of course, the rumor that'll never go away about Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy. And although this article doesn't mention that, thank God, it's actually still possible that they are going to do something with Ryan. He continues to talk about it as though it is a thing. When he was doing all the press for The Glass Onion, he was really happy to talk about Star Wars and sort of put the ball in the court of Lucasfilm. Now, it's also really important for me to talk about Daisy Ridley and the fact that Daisy Ridley continues to signal being open and coming back to Star Wars. And there was even a Hollywood Trade reporter that posted some stuff on social media hinting that there was more to this story than just some rumblings, that indeed Daisy Ridley will be returning to the role of Rey for Star Wars. And I know there's like this big rumor going around that they're going to make a movie with Grogu and Rey, and maybe that's the next Star Wars movie. I actually haven't heard anything about that. I don't think that rumor is actually true, although it would make sense to leverage a character like Grogu to perhaps get more fans to be open to a Rey project. And so that's all the official stuff coming from other people that are pretty dang reliable. It really does seem like we'll get the announcements of at least the next Star Wars movie at Star Wars Celebration. It's going to be the Damon Lindelof movie, and that's pretty much guaranteed. But now let me begin telling you all the crazy tea that I have heard, and whoa, baby, it's a lot. So first of all, let's focus on the Damon Lindelof Star Wars movie. This is so crazy to me because Lucasfilm had this 3-year break to supposedly try to figure out what they were going to do with their movies. They have not done a great job on that, and they just recently sort of shifted their plan, and now they're doing this Damon Lindelof-led writer's room to create this next movie. That is indeed going to be the movie that's announced at Star Wars Celebration and the film that will drop in 2025. Now, from what we're hearing about the film, it is said to focus on 1, maybe 2 lead characters that are persons of color. According to insider Jeff Snyder, a couple of the people being looked at here are Brian Tyler Henry, who played Phastos in The Eternals, but also Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who is said to be cast as Wonder Man for Marvel Studios and is also Black Manta in the Aquaman movies. Now, as far as the plot of the movie, multiple sources are indicating that this film is going to be set in a post-sequel trilogy era. Now, it's not going to directly follow up the events of Rise of Skywalker, and instead I think is going to focus on these new characters. But I have heard from sources that Daisy Ridley will absolutely be returning as Rey, and she will be featured in this film. I've also heard that you're going to get Oscar Isaac back as Poe for this movie, and you'll even get Rose Tico returning as well. So I think what this movie's supposed to do is set up what the Star Wars galaxy looks like after the Rise of Skywalker, still having some of the sequel trilogy characters playing a big role on what happens with the galaxy, but also establishing new conflict and new characters to, I think, be taken into future projects. And another thing I heard was that it's not just this movie that Disney and Lucasfilm wants to make sequel trilogy, that they are going to make all of the next few movies in the sequel trilogy era, including the Taika Waititi movie. Which frankly seems kind of odd because of the art and logo that was used when they first talked about Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie. A lot of people think that Taika's movie is going to deal with an older time in the galaxy and perhaps even do a spin on what Star Wars actually is. And another thing that I've heard that is just so wild to me is that Kathleen Kennedy will be stepping down before the end of 2023, and she will have a replacement. And it seems like Dave Filoni, even if he's not made the actual replacement for Kathleen Kennedy, is for all intents and purposes leading the show over there. He's in that writer's room for the Lindelof movie and will likely be involved in all of the writer's rooms for the next few Star Wars films. And so it's weird because on the one hand, I'm glad to see Kathy go. I really don't think she's done a great job with Star Wars, and I think she's really out of touch with modern sensibilities, chatter online, and what Star Wars actually is. But it's also really weird that she seems to be leaving Lucasfilm with a direction that's going to take them towards more sequel trilogy stuff. And I guess the main question for me is, what are they going to say about this movie at Star Wars Celebration in order to get fans excited about it? Like, how are they going to juggle and balance the fact that this is a movie taking place in a post-sequel trilogy timeline, the possibility of even using Daisy Ridley as a draw for the film, and yet also trying to explain to fans that it's going to be of better quality than the sequels? There was a massive article that dropped late last year talking about how Lucasfilm was fully aware of a lot of the problems that they had during the sequel trilogy time, especially when it came to the rise of Skywalker. Something that's kind of scary in that report is that it seems like Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy have decided that what they did incorrectly with the rise of Skywalker was being too fan servicey. And this is because they obviously attempted to fix a lot of the problems from The Last Jedi and make things better from a fan perspective, but it ended up just feeling very hollow, empty, and I think The Rise of Skywalker is an absolutely terrible movie. So why are they seemingly doubling and tripling down on the sequels by continuing that timeline? Now, I don't think they could ever retcon the sequels, but I don't understand why they don't just jump massively ahead in the timeline or even go back to something like the Old Republic. It's weird to me that given the opportunity to make any kind of Star Wars movie, any kind, that they choose to basically make an extension of their trilogy. On the one hand, maybe they can actually repair this. Maybe they can actually help the sequel trilogy characters, the merchandising, all of the stuff that's associated with the sequels, if they actually make a really awesome movie that continues the story of the galaxy past Episode 9. But the fact that they seem to be fully aware that they need a big hit, and they need this movie to be very, very good, and yet they are trying to make it sequel, just seems counterintuitive. It seems like you're going to start from the place where a lot of fans will be skeptical at best and at worst completely turned off by that prospect. Like, we hear a lot of things about how Lucasfilm has learned their lesson. They're committed to making better stuff, that they want to get things back on track. But where's the evidence of that? And the other thing that's really crazy is we've had all these years of them taking this break and trying to figure out what's next for them with the films, and yet they've had project after project completely fall apart. And to just establish a writer's room last July and basically streamline a movie for 2025 doesn't seem like the plan. Like, it would have been much better if they had been developing this for years and years, and we heard, hey, they had this writer's room 2 years ago, they fine-tuned this idea, they completely understand what's next for Star Wars, and it's going to be epic, it's going to be planned out, and it's going to be of high quality. That doesn't seem to be what's actually happening behind the scenes. It seems like it's just another scramble, and they're just trying to force something out for an arbitrary date because they realize that they have to be putting movies out there and making more money for the Papa Disney. Now, I will say, on sort of an optimistic, sort of perspective here, it is possible that they have some plans that are perhaps being built that Dave Filoni can come in and craft with Lindelof, because we've also heard rumors that, like, John and Dave are going to hop over and do something film related. And I think if at Star Wars Celebration they come out of nowhere and surprise everybody with, like, John and Dave being very involved in what the future movies look like, that's going to be a huge vote of confidence, and I think a lot of fans will be excited about that. But if that doesn't happen and Lucasfilm wants to literally come out and act like everybody loved the sequels and therefore they should be excited to explore the galaxy past that, I think they're going to run into a major problem. And this movie in the box office is going to be a major litmus test for where the Star Wars brand is actually at with consumers. So I'm ultimately hopeful that this movie's freaking awesome, and that perhaps other films after that are also amazing, and that Star Wars gets back on track and really puts out a ton of quality stuff that makes casual fans and hardcore fans alike love the experience of engaging with this content. But I'm also also incredibly skeptical of this plan. I don't think it's as well thought out as they're going to try to present to us, and I'm incredibly worried that if they don't do this the right way, this movie could be dead on arrival before it even begins rolling footage. What do you think about all of this? Are you excited to find out more details about the next Star Wars movie and Star Wars Celebration? Would you be down for more sequel trilogy stuff? Let me know all your thoughts about it in the comment section below. And if you want to watch more, why not check out this video I recently did about some absolutely wild rumors about the Fox X-Men in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Subscribe, like this video. Have a great day, and see you guys. Bye.